Thanks for the nice introduction. So I hope I can keep up to the expectations. Well, what I'm going to say is based on some tremendous work which was done at the Ethics or ELSA board of Nano to Life, and then followed up by the Nanomate Roundtable, 2 EU projects, where I had the honor and a lot of pleasure to talk as a natural scientist with philosophers, theologians, lawyers about nanotechnology, nanobiotechnology, and nanomedicine. And it was quite as I said, a pleasure, but also very demanding to understand their thinking, because philosophers think of the world very different than natural scientists. And at the beginning, I think we had some problems of understanding each other, but the more you talk, the more you understand. And I think my advantage is that I'm not a philosopher, so I have some simple messages here, which might be sometimes a little bit provocative. But at least that's what I understood from the work we did in this, these 2 projects. So I put a question mark behind this title, which actually was created by Beat. So I tried to answer it at the end of my talk. First of all, what I also would like to try to put the impact of nano in medicine a little bit into perspective, because we talk about nanomedicine, but actually there is no nanomedicine, because it's only nano in or for medicine, as we, I think, learned during the sessions this morning and yesterday. So nanotechnology, as we saw, is nanoparticle diagnostic surfaces, materials for smart devices or scaffolds. It always is enabling these kind of developments, so it's enabling technology, that's why we talk about it, but it's only part of the story. And I think we have to be aware of that to understand also how ethics is related to these kind of developments. Of course, it's a new technology, and you can expect that all the ethical questions which are usually connected to the development of new technology will come up with nanotechnology, and especially nanomedicine. But in this case, you also have to apply biomedical ethics, as you will see. Just to give you some examples, what I mean is, if we talk about implants, for example, and here are some of the examples, you see that we know for a long time, for example, hip joints, and we have seen some examples today. We know stents, which are put into all kinds of areas of our body. We know teeth implants, and so on. Now, these developments have been around for years, and nanotechnology will certainly have an impact, because as we saw also at this meeting, you try to improve the lifetime of these hip joints, which you usually have to take out after 10 to 15 years due to corrosion. So of course, it's a hope that you can now improve these kind of implants by putting a coating on it, which then the patient has to go, or that it has to be taken out after 20 or 25 years. So you gain 10 or 5 years. And the same with tooth implants, or you can put surfaces on stents that they don't clog. So I think nanotechnology has certainly an impact on these kind of developments. But the questions with that remain the same. I mean, we can ask ourselves how many parts can you put in the body and replace parts of yourself to still be the same person. And if you think about brain implants and all this kind of stuff which goes on in neurology, this question definitely becomes more virulent once you also have the possibility with nanotechnology to make things smaller, make things smarter, and so this question will certainly be asked again. The same is true, and that will be emphasized in the last 2 talks of this session much more, where is the borderline between medical treatment and enhancement. And also, especially with improved implants, of course they will be more expensive because you put a lot of new technology on it, but is that sort of counteracted by the longer lifetimes? So I think we have to also make new calculations in the medical cost evaluations on these kind of technologies. Another example you saw this morning already is that we think that nanotechnology helps to come from curative medicine, where we wait until symptoms are at a clinical stage, and then you treat it, and if you are successful, the disease disappears, or you get symptomatic or chronic disease. Now, we think that with nanotechnology, we get this paradigm shift to preemptive or preventive medicine, where we start with screening, then have the possibility of early diagnosis, so the actual disease is very mild or doesn't occur at all. So that is supposed to make it more cheap. And nanotechnology, as we have seen during this conference and other conferences, well, is certainly an enabling technology to improve the diagnostics, to improve the therapy. But as a biologist, I think the more important part is biomarkers. Without the biomarkers, you can have all kinds of nanotechnology inventions. They won't help you if you don't have the biomarkers and if you don't have evaluated and validated biomarkers. So in this case, again, nanotechnology is contributing to this paradigm shift, but it's certainly not the only important factor in this development, which is actually based on our improved understanding of disease due to molecular biology, basically. So, again, here, we had this question this morning with a very enthusiastic discussion. When do we call a person ill? And the person, the lawyer in the audience who were there, might remember that, raised some really interesting legal questions on this question, which is, of course, impacted by nanotechnology. The same is true about the reliability of this technology, and I think this is a big issue where we also have to think about, especially when we develop technologies, how can we make sure, especially when it goes to early diagnosis, that this is a reliable system? Because you can imagine if a patient has some device which tells him or her that she get a certain disease, and it is a false positive, then this is very bad for the patient, of course. Nevertheless, especially when you think about screening, will there be social pressure to undergo this screening? I mean, we know this from breast cancer screening already. We have big programs, and then they disappear, now they come back again. But these are general questions we know for years, and of course the right to know or not to know is also something which is comes up when we talk about new devices and diagnostics. An important question which is very virulent, and we talk about this in the ETP Nanomedicine a lot, is the reimbursement. Because only if we can raise money to pay for these new developments, they will be available to patients. And of course, this is a big problem for third countries or developing countries. And we have to see how we can solve this. The EMA session showed that regulation versus company revenues is also a big issue, where the companies sometimes are reluctant to move into nanomedicine because they don't know if the regulations will change or if the regulators will change things so that the development becomes longer and therefore more expensive, and the revenues will not be enough to reinvest in research. Now, cost and benefit relation in personalized medicine mean so far the pharma industry have this blockbuster model, and they have to change it, but that will be then reduce the market. And the question is, will there be enough for pharmaceutical companies to actually move into these new concepts? And that is again a cost-benefit relation topic. And last but not least, this is, I think, a critical question we really should start discussing. So far, our system is cost-driven. Everything is under the cost law. But it would be much more, of course, beneficial for the patient if we would have a patient-driven healthcare system. The question is, can we pay for it? And that is a question which again comes up with this nano into medicine, because that opens up these new revenues you see in this conference all over the place. So my conclusions are, first of all, of course, nanotechnology will have an impact on many medical applications. I mean, that's for sure, and we see lots of examples in this conference and others. However, I don't think it raises any new ethical and social issues different from the ones we know from any other medical innovation. So I think if you apply the rules we know from medical ethics or from new technology ethics, we can certainly live with that, and maybe we have to adapt some of them, but I think we can apply and know the rules. We have to adapt them. So if we come back to the first question, I think in daily life we have a lot of experience with dealing with these kind of questions. We might have to find some new answers, but I think right now nanotechnology for medicine is not really raising any really dramatic new question as far as I can see. So thank you for your attention.